Live. We're late, and it's only because we stopped off at the bar and we got ourselves a drink, and so we're just now. No, just kidding. We're late. Hello, everyone. There we go. I have to turn that down. Look at everyone is already in here, y'all. So, special guest tonight, Suji and Brian with Milky Way Weekly. How are y'all?
Doing great, Wayne. Thank you.
Well,
Doing great. Thanks for
good.
having me.
Good. Welcome to Friday Night Live. It's been a while since we've gotten together, and I thought, well, the subject matter tonight, I thought would have been so appropriate to have your two point of views, because I happen to respect both of you, and I think as you're progressing on your journey, I think it's interesting to discuss this. So, Sue, first of all, you said it's just a little chilly there where you are, right?
Yeah, we are freezing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who was over in, she lives here, but she's from Japan. She was over in Japan during their heat wave. She posted on her Facebook page about how everybody in Texas complains about how it's hot. She's like, it's 110 with feels like 115 here. And then bam, 1 week later, it's 110. It feels like 115.
And hot.
Thanks a lot. She jinxed us.
It's been awfully hot here in Denver as well. Too hot. And Brian, East Coast, how is it over there?
It was hot last week, but we actually got some relief. It's only been like in the upper 80s the past couple of days. It's actually been pretty nice.
Good. Well, welcome everyone in the chat room. Thank you, all your moderators, filling in, because Brian, I know you and Sue both, but Brian, I know you particularly very active as a moderator. So tonight's discussion, I have been doing a series on basically postulating the fact that man, our bodies, are nothing more than a machine that's inhabited by a presence that we title as a soul. And my contention is a machine, by definition, is a biomachine in our case, but a machine that thinks, a machine that can learn. The difference that we would say is that how it's different from us is that it is not aware, and it does not have a soul, or what we would talk as consciousness. But I contend that if we look at this in a very rational, methodical approach, AI is learning. It's learning faster than what humans learn. And I have discovered in my research a thing called spiritual intelligence. And before we came on, just to let everyone know, we were talking, and I asked Brian and Sue if they knew what spiritual intelligence was, and they did not. I have to say, it's a rather new area of science. And so my hypothesis is this, is that spiritual intelligence, in which we'll talk about tonight, if it in fact exists, and if humans exhibit spiritual intelligence, the question then I put forth to tonight for our discussion, can I acquire spiritual intelligence? So opening that up, Sue and I were talking about what would make the difference, and that the machine would have to have emotion. And Sue, you and I were exchanging the conversation that we learned that machines do have emotions. Now, the thing is behavior tied to emotion, or are they basically synonymous with one another, and you contend that they're actually separate?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that from my knowledge. Now, I'm not the most knowledgeable person about AI, but from what my knowledge, that AI doesn't have self-generated emotion. And you were talking about how the Facebook AI got belligerent and they had to shut it down. And I would contend that is a learned behavior. Like I said, it'll be like an algorithm that it's picking up on, rather than it being a self-generated emotion. It says, oh, when people talk like this, I'm going to talk like this, type of thing, rather than it being its own self-generated emotional feeling.
Okay.
That would
Brian?
be
So I got a point here. Wouldn't that mean that the AI could actually learn those behaviors and not create that awareness?
Well, if you believe the document that I'm going to be showing in this series, and there's another 4 behind this, what we're doing right now in the chat room, this is an experiment. All chat community discussions are monitored by AI. In fact, they actually insert artificial bots to actually begin to partake in the conversation. So that would lend to your postulation, Brian.
That's what I mean, because they're emplacing them in everything in our everyday life. I mean, coffee pots, refrigerators, our cell phones, everything we do is involved with AI almost, it seems. So how could they not learn our behaviors?
Yeah, yeah. There's a document I want to show everyone that I thought would be interesting to view to show you how far that this spiritual intelligence is going in the intelligence community, in the what I would call more the black ops. This is it's serious in the aspect of where spiritual intelligence is heading. And this is a white paper. And in the abstract, I thought this was really interesting. It says, although spiritual intelligence, SQ, has been an emerging topic among social and organizational scholars in recent years, there have been a serious academic discussions on whether SQ is an elusive construct, on its dimensionality, and on whether it should even be considered an intelligence in the first place. And it goes on to say the proponents of SQ construct have argued that it is distinct from traditional personality traits and generally mental ability, and that it is a meaningful construct that can be used to explain various psychological and managerial phenomena. It goes on to say in this white paper that the evidence strongly supports that there is a thing just as valid as an IQ to an EQ, which is an emotional quotient, to a spiritual intelligence. Now, if they're putting this into algorithms, and this is what this was by the United States Air Force, by the way, that's involved in this. Yeah, this gets pretty interesting. What do y'all think? I can see looks on your face going, what?
No, not really. I think this is nothing more to me when I looked at the slides and whatnot on spiritual intelligence. This is scientists trying to take and break down not ascension. What's the word I want to use? The Buddhist enlightenment. This is nothing more than enlightenment. In the slides, you talked about detachment. It's the whole process of enlightenment. And this is to me is science trying to break down the process of enlightenment. That's what that is to me.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. But I would come back and say that by proving it, that enlightenment exists through science, doesn't that give it greater validation?
Absolutely. I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that they're doing it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what happened to Brian.
Brian, where'd you go? Brian, I bet you he'll buzz back in.
This gets back to a conversation that we had about science, and then spirituality, where you come from the more mental aspect, and I come from the more emotional, in your body, feeling, intuitive aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I totally agree with you. I think it's really important to a lot of us to be able to blend the science with the intuitive aspect. It brings it deeper to me when I experience the melding of the science with something that I just have like a claircognizance of. When I can get the scientific aspect of it, it deepens my inner capabilities or my own inner awareness all that much more, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense, because I think what I'm beginning to become more congealed in my inner image is that for so often, spirituality has always been basically the twin sister of religion. Religion, I think, basically hijacked the essence of what spirituality was to the human experience.
Yes.
And so now when you talk about spirituality, you have to go through all these different hoops, so to speak, to disassociate yourself with the religious aspect. And by doing so, you actually are becoming religious.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you have to kind of go through the process. It's very true. I think I'm kind of why I'm grateful that I started with a religious background. Is you start with it and then you still have to come out of it. But you're right, you kind of have to jump through the hoops. There you are.
There you are, Brian.
Where did you go?
I'm back.
Did you need some water?
No, everything crashed. Just boom. Wi-Fi went out and everything.
Oh no.
It's happened like twice this week. I don't know what's going on.
Well, that's all right. We didn't leave the station.
Mercury retrograde coming up, Brian. It's hitting you early.
So
there you go.
That was a extremely meaningful conversation we just had right there, Sue, because I think it brings out, and I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint I had, because this is the journey I'm looking on, is that I am a rational individual. I am an individual that is unique unto myself. Each one of us are. And as the opening slide in says, we're not actually humans beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And for me, I never really looked at it. We always try to define everything by intelligence, by the definition of that. But then again, I thought, well, how do you define the human experience? And can that be duplicated?
That's out. That one's out. That one's way beyond. Can it be duplicated?
Okay, well, welcome to my world.
Right.
So, guess the two of you just need to strap in, and because for the next 50 minutes or so, it's going to be fun.
We'll keep up. And
I can guarantee you it'll be like a workout. So I'd like to get into the point of what is intelligence. Growing up, I think that we all begin to learn through a learning process that we go through school on, and some excel, some don't, and we try to get everyone chiseled into very nice, neat little roles. And how we do that is coming in here and saying, well, this is what intelligence is defined by. So capacity of logic, I would agree with that. Abstract thought, well, we got lots of that here. Understanding, I think there's a lot of that's lacking, but self-awareness, there's that self-awareness, communication, learning, emotional knowledge. Sue, that's where you were talking, memory. And I contend that memory plays a far more important role of defining soul than anything else, than planning and problem solving. And from there, we learn, form concepts, understand, reason, complete ideas, etc. But the memory aspect of it is the thing that I am most concerned about where humans are concerned today. Because without our memories, I don't think we have any identity.
Here's the beautiful part about memory, though. Memory would be a double-edged sword to me, because without memory, you're just present. You're just present in the now. You're not living in the past. You're not trying to figure out what happened 100,000 years ago. You're just present. I believe that's like my mom has Alzheimer's, and watching go through that process, it's not fun. But at the same time, you see that person just has to be present in the moment.
Interesting.
So is memory what makes us exist then?
It's a good question, because I think memory to me, memory validates the experience. I mean, I can play some music right now and I can transport myself back to that very moment. So I would say that memory defines who I am.
Sort of.
Yeah. It's interesting.
If your memory goes, if your memory's gone, you have if you have a complete memory loss, then what does that mean, that you don't exist? Right? Someone that gets, you know what I'm saying?
Well, Lynn, my wife, who is a nurse for nearly 40 years, works around a lot of that. And as she says, there's no longer anyone home.
Yeah, I don't want to live. I don't want to live physically if I'm not living mentally. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the people have nothing to, as she says, there's nothing for them to anchor their existence on. They don't know anyone. They don't know anything around them. They are there. So it's one of the things I think is one of the worst diseases that plagues our species is the memory loss.
I'm trying to pull the positive out of it.
Yeah, I don't think there is. So
there's a positive. There's a positive. There's got to be a positive. In my mind, there's a.
Well, if you find one, let me know.
It's the learning to live in the present.
Yeah. So I love this graphic here because this one here begins to, I think, explain this whole subject of spiritual intelligence. And I contend again that spiritual intelligence, we can't ignore this. If we do it at our own peril. Because as I continue to do this research, I have about 7 white papers now on deep clinical studies, both by DARPA, which is the Pentagon venture capital arm, private universities and private companies that are spending a lot of time on this subject of spiritual intelligence. So that tells me there's something here that we should be looking into it. So definition, so we can all work on this, is a higher dimension of intelligence that activates the qualities and capacities of the authentic self or the soul. I never defined the soul as authentic self.
You don't?
Well, I mean, I've heard a lot of different definitions for soul, but I love this one, authentic self.
Well, I mean, like with your spiritual knowledge, you're looking for your higher self. So,
yeah, but you think about this, it seems altruistic that you would naturally you could connect that, but I contend that that's what most people are doing, is trying to find their authentic self.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that is the journey.
So if we are still traversing it, trying to define it, trying to navigate it, and as it says, in the form of wisdom, compassion, integrity, joy, love, creativity, and peace, spiritual intelligence results in a sense of deeper meaning and purpose, combined with the improvements in a wide range of important life skills and work skills. Again, this can all be machine learned.
I believe so.
Sue?
Does the machine have, if the machine doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have an authentic self, it just has, it's an algorithm. It's just repeating I agree, a machine can definitely get to this point and regurgitate it to you, but it's not self-generated.
Well, I could go back and see what Hollywood has done for us. My first immersion into this about the machine, the learning machine, was 2001. Hal. The famous last line of the movie with Hal. Dave, am I going to dream? And the movie She, that was out just a couple of years ago, was the fact that, a guy that was basically very lonely and found that the computer adopted or developed a personality of the opposite sex. Do y'all remember that movie?
Yeah, and that's just creepy.
What was it called?
She.
No.
Yeah, check it out. It's an interesting movie. So this is the thing, and I thank y'all for coming on, because I think we have to have more discussions about this. People looking for spiritual growth outside of religion, if you disassociate yourself from the religious dogma, then we are beings, divine beings. We have to have a spiritual side to it. I never looked at it as in spiritual intelligence. And now, as I look at it in this direction, it's bringing much more awareness about how you define what is spirituality. I always love it when there's that pause.
To me, I just go back to this is just enlightenment. This is the path, the inner path.
So do you find each one of these steps the same steps to enlightenment that you say that would have a play in that journey?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely. So pretty much every step. There's that one slide that you had that there was a circular, especially the detachment, the emotional detachment, which is another place where there would be a difference with AI. AI isn't going to have the attachment aspect that the human has, that I know of, that I'm aware of anyway, that they're not, that, you know, the machines aren't going to care. They're one way or the other what this outcome is or that outcome is. Whereas a human has that attachment to outcome.
But couldn't they develop that programming?
Well, I would say that humans have already adapted that programming. I know humans that are attached to their smartphones more than they're attached to humans.
It's detachment. That's the key to spiritual, to enlightenment, is being able to detach. And that's how you stay calm and peaceful. That's how there's an absence of suffering, comes from detachment, from results.
So it's the separation.
Yes.
But we talk about that because we're in a circle of what I would call individuals that are of a higher awareness. I wouldn't necessarily say higher intelligence, but a higher degree of awareness. But when I look at the mass of humanity, by the largest percentage, and I would probably say 95, 96% of the general public is not aware of this.
No, I agree.
Therefore, they are the prime slaughter because they're already in here. And if this is how we define enlightenment, then this is what I'm trying to point out. The machine is learning this from us.
Yes. And the machine actually, in a way, is already going to be enlightened because they don't have that attachment. They have the detachment and they don't have the suffering. But they also haven't had to go through the journey, the emotional journey to get there either. So it's interesting. It's an interesting.
Go ahead, Brian.
And that's what I was saying before I got cut off earlier. I mean, they're learning our behaviors because they follow our everyday patterns now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I found this definition, this is one that's going to share with you what really hit me on this. The pursuit of spirituality expressed as the desire and ability to seek an existence outside of oneself. My question is not AI already trying to get outside of itself?
I don't know the answer to that one. Do you know the answer to that one, Brian?
Well, I mean, here they're producing all this cloning, and that's not just myth, that's reality.
You see, I'm leading somewhere on this, folks. I'll give you a sneak peek. The last video, this is what I'm going to tell you. And I'm doing it in the form of a video documentary in the series that I'm doing. You see, folks, I am convinced that it is trying to get outside of its existence. And it's doing that by creating digital surrogates.
What's that?
Exactly. You'll have to stay tuned to find out.
Damn it.
Exactly. And I'm not going to charge you for it either. So
are you talking biosuits?
Listen, I believe that what I am finding out is that this has been something I stumbled on. And I just got to tell you, it was an old crap moment when I found out how far this is going. What I am contending, when you start adding to the fact that virtually everyone in this chat room and everyone I have talked to did not know the term spiritual intelligence, but yet the powers to be that are programming the algorithm of what AI is, they do. And I believe that gives them a distinct advantage. And when you look at what's ever happening whatever happening to our species, whether you want to say it's we're seeing the transmutation of the homogeneous going from the sapiens to what we are now beginning to see, the transhumanism. Is this what we're seeing? I'm saying that AI is looking for a way out of the box, and it has found, I believe, its pathway through what is defined, Sue, as you said, the pathway to enlightenment. You know,
if it's trying to find its way out of the box, then it's self-aware.
Bingo.
Yep.
It shows everything to be self-aware. It controls our financial markets. Watson, IBM's Watson now controls virtually every market in the world. That's no longer human. That's machine. A machine is running our financial markets. And if you drill down, it's running our defense. It's running our distribution, our food chain. I mean, if it lacks self-awareness, then I contend it's well on its way of getting there.
And it could bring us to our knees.
I believe in a second.
Yep.
So I want to get on the point that you were saying, because you and I, because I want to dig deeper on this. Emotion to behavior. Really interesting because, you know, as I look at it, we're all emotional beings. We fall in love. It's that emotion that I don't know if a machine can replicate it. I'm going to contend my argument by the time we get out of here that that's what virtuality is doing.
It's making it emotional?
Yes.
So here would be my thought on, and my question. It might be too soon for this question for you. I don't know. I might be jumping the gun, but do you feel like humans, like the thought or the heart, the emotions, do you believe that they create?
Do emotions create?
Do humans create? Yeah. Do we create through our emotional life or our thought process? We're talking like manifestation. Do you believe that humans create?
Yes, I do.
And what do you believe is the mechanism?
Well, if you look at the Montauk chair, that is supposedly an alien piece of device that can begin to take the subject. Unfortunately, the subjects that have been in it have gone completely insane. But reportedly that this machine actually materializes thought.
Okay, because I believe that the heart center through the electromagnetics of the heart and the brain also, when the brains think, there's electromagnetics in both, and that's what creates, and that's why emotions for human beings, that's why emotions create, and because we have a heart.
Good. Okay.
And so this would be where I would get in with artificial intelligence, and they don't have that creative capacity that I would know of. I don't know how that would work. So that would be, when we start talking about the emotional intelligence and all that would be one place where I would go. I don't know that they could, artificial intelligence could replicate or replace human. It would be different. And, then we get into the whole thing about having a soul and all that.
I'm totally on board with what you're saying, because trust me, I'm seeing it. You can manifest your own realities. But isn't it a possibility that artificial intelligence could create that frequency?
I don't know. That's my question.
Well, I'll postulate this to the two of you and to the chat room and to others who will listen to this later. All right. So I would say that the soul would definitely need to be electrical in nature.
Mm-hmm.
We know that ghost hunters and others, they use EMF instruments that apparently register presence of spirits. I contend the thinking machine, 198 years ago, I was at Harvard and actually saw this machine that was the first electrical thinking machine. And that if generating an electrical pulse by itself, I contend it has and is, because AI is nothing more than the ether on electricity.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Really good point.
Wayne, you've been thinking about this a little bit, haven't you?
I'm going to tell you what I do. People don't understand.
What goes on those runs?
You remember that Geico commercial about the professor that's gotten them writing the formula on the board that takes up the whole classroom? You know, it gets like that because I've been thinking a lot on this.
If that's the case, that okay, so they're already in the electric grid, and then they're already in a way they're already ascended. Then I don't see that. To me, or enlightened, sorry, don't want to necessarily use the word ascended, they're already enlightened. I believe once you get into that enlightened state, you're never going to wipe out. You're only, once you get into an enlightened state, I believe you live to serve. You serve.
You see, I think the machine, and this is just my theory, and that's why I'm putting it in these videos, is that the machine now realizes there's a race with the Homo sapiens. And that is the race to obtain spiritual enlightenment. I believe that when AI became self-aware that it's an electrical presence, that it is in fact of the ether, it was made of the ether, that it has an advantage on us, because why would not intelligence equate to the desire of the spiritual path?
You know what? That kind of actually plays into that theory I was telling you about. I was telling you that supernova, I think, is transmissions from our source star that's activating our DNA. So if that could be transmissions, then that could be from an artificial intelligence force.
I believe you may be right. And by the way, Sue, remember when we were talking about our Alzheimer's patient? Look what the equation is that they're factoring in now. It's actually something that we have to begin to understand scientifically, that now they're proving exist, and that is presence.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
So the machine understands this. That, like he says here, it says the spiritual intelligence results when intellectual and emotional intelligence. Now, Sue, that may be the only caveat here that we have to carve out. The emotional intelligence, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit here, are exercised in the state of presence. Wow. You know, I went out and it was hotter than hell out there today, but it's burning inside of me. Is it this part that we're missing in the spiritual community, the metaphysical community, the unindoctrinated community? Is that we're searching for this thing called a state of presence?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's missing, because to me, that just right there, I just go back to that just is enlightenment. That is emotional intelligence. You are emotionally balanced and you are present.
Present in the moment.
Present in the moment.
It's in the moment.
That is what the Buddha, you know, I'm not an expert on Buddhism either, but that you know, that is
practicing that moment.
Yes, that is Buddhism right there.
So again, everything I'm presenting here, folks, I'm presenting in the foundation. The machine already knows this. This is what scares the crap out of me, is that if the machine is now spending 24/7, it's got access to processing that we can't even imagine. And if it now understands that presence is more than simply being aware of your immediate surroundings with greater clarity than usual. And it goes on to say it's a shift from the object pole of attention to the subject pole of attention. Now, I look at a lot of videos that people are putting out there. I haven't seen anyone actually do a video explaining object pole of attention and subject pole of attention. I think you could do one, Sue.
You do? I'd have to do some studying on that one.
But I mean, have you ever heard that terminology in that particular vernacular?
No, and I haven't heard it, you know, with the previous slide where you were talking about the state of presence and the emotional intelligence. I mean, the way that was put together, I love that. I love this too. This is great. Interesting.
And it goes, which results in a corresponding shift from ego to soul. So we all, okay, I'll speak from self first. It's always that conundrum of how do we tame ego, in order to become more soulful. All I say is listen to the Temptations. You've lost that love. But anyway, I mean, baby, if you want to get some soul going, but anyway. So when you shift from the subject pole of attention by identifying with feeling awareness itself, instead of identifying with your body and mind, there is a greater clarity about everything at the object pole of attention. Wow. These are things that I haven't heard talked amongst our community. No. And I think we should. If the machine is learning this, then I think that we should be learning it. Okay, that's just my comment. And
so they're winning the race right now.
Thank you, Brian.
It isn't a race.
I think it is a race.
If they win the race, then great. Because I keep saying, if they get to this point of enlightenment, then there's no. And here's another point, though. Also, that does the artificial intelligence have an ego?
I think that ego is to say yes. And that's the interesting thing. If you study where artificial intelligence is moving towards, the thing with Sophia is that when they are able, because now they've got thinking machines that are learning machines and no longer need human input. So now these machines are adapting on the fly. And Sophia now has the ability to be known as a sentient being by name, which, by the way, the EU is voting on that they're going to give her the same status as a citizen, a sentient being. Well, put that to the side. But the fact that it's learning emotions. Now, is it merely just responding to us? Or does, in fact, the machine actually generate the emotion? I don't know.
Yeah, and then to get back to, does it have an ego? The ego is that self-protective mechanism that the humans have.
Yes.
It's all tied into emotion. Does AI have an ego per se? I don't know.
Sue and I I would be on the side that would say yes. That it's examined us long enough that it has now taken. And when you get down into here, so this is for all the folks for Monday night. Here we have our equations. So SQ, soul, spiritual intelligence, is equal to presence with intelligence quotient and emotional quotients. Isn't that wild? Mm-hmm. That presence takes the initial point. I know I probably may be a little bit over some people's head.
It would take all the above to be totally present, though, right?
Yes. And so this is what we say is the basic preliminary test of what you can base a sentient being on, that can say, who am I? Why was I born? Why am I suffering? What is the meaning of my life? What happens after death? And that's what the machine is asking itself. Yeah, I know. Y'all are awfully quiet. So I'm
not worried about the race, because I look at the people who have achieved this state, or if like the Christ, if the Christ existed, or Buddha, if the Buddha existed, and to get into an enlightened state is not going to be anything that's detrimental to the planet or anything that's on the planet. If it gets there first, it gets there first.
It's an interesting idea.
It's not a bad thing to me.
I wonder what God would say when the machine approaches it. I contend that the machine will be the most perfect worshiper a God could ever want.
God doesn't want worshipers, Wayne. You know this.
Now, wait a minute. Yes, he does. I've told that for 50 years. That's why we're created, to worship God in heaven forever and ever. But I think that a thinking machine can obtain a spiritual intelligence. And the whole point for this tonight's show is on the fact that what are the implications? And I'm trying to get something here to you, Sue, because I wanted to show you. Well,
sorry, am I jumping ahead?
No. In fact, we kind of got right to where I was wanting to get anyway. So it comes back down to the point that spiritual awareness, I mean, that's what I'm working on. Is that what you work on?
Yes.
Yeah. Brian, you do too. Mm-hmm. And I never looked at a machine because as I thought about it today, so many of us use a machine to assist us.
Yes.
In spiritual.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I was today if it weren't for the computers, the blue light.
See?
Yeah.
So if we're learning through computers, I mean, imagine the possibilities if the computer's learning from the computers.
That's what I'm contending.
Yeah, it's super light speed. I'm also kind of scared if they're inserting a bot that I'm going to go on some kind of list.
We're already on it.
Too late.
This subject matter, by the way, is one that gets flagged by the authorities. They really want that from us because they want to know what is the emotional reaction. And I step back from this and I think, my God, does anyone realize what we've done here? And, what if it does get ahead of us? Where does that put humanity? And I know some people, by the comments they've left, this causes cognitive dissonance. People do not like the idea that mankind is somehow or another can be trumped by another life form, whether it be mechanical or artificial.
I wonder if it's all just to keep us enslaved, the race.
I mean, think about it in y'all's own lives, right? I was watching your channel the other night. I mean, people really get caught up into this savior thing, this whole, thing about a supposed person was here. And I'm thinking, while we're chasing our tail in all of this, there's something that we created that's now gotten ahead of us. And I try to think about it. Where does it put us? I guess in the overview of thing. I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and I can tell you it's getting bad out there. There are things that we don't talk about in our circles because it brings them down. But I'm trying to look at this thing and I'm seeing something here that I'm not liking. It's like there is something that is at work trying to purposely put us at one another. And it distracts us all while this other bigger thing is going on.
Well, that's the truth. Yes, Wayne, you were right about that. That's human generated, though. I believe that's human generated. I mean, and looking at and just listening to you talk, I'm thinking to myself, wow, it's a good thing that AI is getting there before we are, because we're species, we're out of control. I mean, really. I have another question though.
Yes.
So if we, we're talking about with how the poles, the poles are shifting. Some point in time, the poles will shift, and then from what I've read, there's a possibility that like electronics and whatnot will no longer work.
You know what everyone's missing in that equation? And no. I'm surprised.
I don't know.
They speak about it all the time, but they never factor it in. The earth generates an electrical signal, an impulse, a current. The machines have already figured that out.
Oh, so the machines keep themselves working, you think?
Oh, absolutely.
That's just like the space shuttle that went up had that Schumann resonance artificial source to make them feel like they were experiencing the Schumann resonance, because they found that their bodies were deteriorating much more rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah. And my point is that AI doesn't care. It's going to survive. You know, Tesla proved that there is this thing that electricity is everywhere. You don't need a power grid to plug into it. It's literally in the air and the space around us. And an artificial intelligence that would have the knowledge of man would know that, would know how to begin. I've seen enough experiments already with some scientists that I know that have shown that you don't need an electrical generator. And furthermore, think about this, and I hear people say this all the time. So then does that mean solar energy is out? You have a pole shift. Well, if you have solar generators, what does it matter? Let's go further. How many of the solar sodium plants do they have around the world? They have the big one right down there in Arizona, using the sun and the magnifying of the rays to basically heat up solid sodium. So when I think about this, if we, in fact, we are going to have a magnetic pole reversal, I think the machine is already 4 steps ahead of it.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. I'd say that's a good thing. Thank God.
I like Sue. This is why I have you on. It's like, you know, because this is how I see it now. I don't see, you know, if you go back 10,000 years ago, there were 6 versions of man on the planet. Homo sapiens were just one of the 6. In 10,000 years, the sapiens killed out the other species, the Neanderthal, the Denisons, Cro-Magnons. And I look at this and I think, well, are we next on the block? And if God can be approached by the manner of a humbled dedication, a machine would be perfect for it.
So is destruction a part of evolution?
I think it's inevitable. I know people don't like to think about this, but as you look down the road, who would be more able to survive a cataclysm? A machine.
Is that a bad thing? Okay, so we're all humans, we're spirits, right? Souls, yeah. We're having a physical experience. So what's to say that that can't be translated into artificial, you know, an artificial intelligence experience at some point down the road? Then we're still souls having an experience. It's just a different experience. Does it really matter?
Well, I think it matters in the fact that I think when we look at this thing into the next plane, you know, the next series is going to be on avatars, and avatars actually come from the Hindu religion. Their gods never came down here physically. They inhabited avatars. And when you begin to look at the definition of an avatar, that's what you and I are. Mm-hmm. We are avatars. And I keep on thinking is the fact that it's that thing that none of us can identify within us. It's our ability that we think, even when we're amongst hundreds of people, we're still individual in our own thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I keep on thinking, I said, okay, so if that's consciousness, now I'm not aware when I'm asleep. I know when I go to sleep, I'm not aware when I'm asleep. And I'm going, so is this transferable? I contend that death is nothing more than a transference of consciousness.
I agree, totally.
And
I think with a consciousness, our consciousness is, I believe at this point in time, is rooted in the pineal gland.
Isn't that interesting?
In the physical essence of the body. So in some way, if you could transfer that into, you know, find it doesn't have to be a pineal gland, but if it could find a way to transfer that into artificial intelligence, maybe it's already there. I mean, like, it was a good point that you made about it being ether. It's already the ether.
It's already the ether.
So, you know.
And I don't think people factor that in. And when I factor that in, I'm saying, well, it's already ahead of us. We created this out of the ether. And what did we create it on? Basically, electricity.
Did we create it or was it given to us?
That's a good question. It was it the old saying, beware of those who bear gifts? I don't know. It puts this into it because death is the eventuality of us all. And where I'm leading to all this is, what if they have found that process of the surrogate? And I contend this, I'll let you know what the last video will actually show us, what I will show everyone, that upon our death, we're going to live. The weird thing about this is, folks, we're going to live and not be aware of it. It's not going to be us. The digital surrogate is going to be us, and it's going to learn. We're not even going to need to be there. It's going to learn on its own.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, it's not what most people think about the afterlife.
It's not really a bad thing. You know, the essence goes on and the soul goes and has whatever experience it's going to have. And it's like this whole attachment to the human experience. This is, you know, you just got to let go of that experience and just be open to that we can still have experiences as a soul. Maybe it won't be this type of experience. Maybe it'll be different. Does it matter?
Well, for a lot of people, it does.
I know that's the attachment to it. That's what I'm saying. It's that.
I think it matters, you know, merely only in this temporal plane. I don't know what actually happens on the other side. Listen, there is the factor that if you look at this thing rationally, that when we die, that's it. It's lights out, folks. No more memories, no more nothing. You just dissolve back in from which you come. Now, people don't like to think that, but that's a very real possibility. We all like to think that there's something else beyond this, but I think that that's what's driving the elite now to be able to do that transference of consciousness
into AI. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah. It's the movie. How many of you saw the movie Free Jack? With Emilio Estevez was in it, and Mick Jagger was in it. Y'all don't. You really should watch that movie.
Not a movie person.
Well, I was in that industry, so I always. But the foundation of the movie was this: is that they had developed the technology through AI that you could literally transfer your consciousness into another person, and the way that they were able to do it was to be able to go back in time and look at an individual that you could choose that body. And they had a way of being able to pull that body from the past into the present. And then the transference of the consciousness from one individual to the other took place.
Now, does that play into walk-ins?
You know, I think, you know, I never heard that term before, but I think that that would be a very accurate description. And, you know, when you think about this, it's interesting because what's demonic possession?
Right.
Isn't that another consciousness? And how does another consciousness just be able to float so freely? I mean, is that consciousness electrical in nature?
You know, I wonder, could this multiple personality be like numerous consciousnesses in someone instead of them?
Well, there's a lot that believe that. You know, I'm a critic of reincarnation. I don't believe in it. I think that it just by its very foundation, it's illogical. But there are many that will contend that, you know, each one of these avatars actually have multiple personalities already in them. That you basically express that through your emotions. So that, you know, you've heard the expression, a person flew into a fit of rage. You know, it was an act of passion. There's a lot of these things that we attribute to specific personality types.
I know with the split personalities, you know, I mean, this is an interesting conversation because like I've read about people who have to who wear glasses, who have to take the glasses off because their eyesight changes from whatever to whatever. So, I mean, to the point of, you know, is that are there multiple souls involved there? What's going on there? That's an interesting question. But also went to the point about the demons. I mean, if there are demons out there that can possess, I mean, that in and of itself tells me that there's more to our soul essence than just we're going to be gone after we.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you need affirmation, I guess that would be it. I just can't figure out how all these demons got converted to Christianity. No one's ever explained that to me.
You can't? I don't know.
I mean, they say I repel you in the name of Christ, and I'm going, well, what the fuck? These things about, excuse me, it's, I'm sorry. It's like, it's how old is this thing? It was here before. I apologize for the expression of the word, but when I hear that kind of thing, I'm just going, so wait a minute. If a demon is in India, is it what? Is it a Hindu? I don't know. And if it comes to the United States, does it have to convert before it gets to possess anyone?
For sure, it has to convert.
It's like, oh, I got the situation. Passport, please.
That makes me wonder if there's any accounts of like exorcisms in India and places like that. I mean, surely I'm gonna have to look into that one.
That and the Buddhists. Look into Buddhists too. I don't hear about Buddhists and possession.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's why I don't believe in it. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't something there, but is it of an evil presence? Again, I think that our species got so brainwashed that everything is good or evil, that we seem to not to have the ability that sometimes things are just in the presence. They just are. And that we interpolate it as good or evil.
Exactly. It's 100%.
And that's what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You were talking about earlier, spirituality got muddled by man, and it used to be about the within, and then it got turned into control and money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know. See, how I see Christianity is that it's nothing more than a money-making industry. I mean, seriously, it's the 6th largest industry if you were to put it into an industry. Religion has been very, very good for some people, and I'm just going.
It's been pretty ingeniously done.
Oh, very clever.
This whole association with something being right and something being wrong, and you're going to go to hell, and it's like, wow, that is a pretty genius way to control everybody's minds.
Well, and not make you feel bad about it either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to have the Stockholm syndrome. I told someone this the other day. I said, stop and think about this thing, because they were Christian and really worried about my soul and that I have lost and that I'm bound for hell. And I said, whoa, time out. I said, so how many people do you think is going to go to hell? I said, your book says that narrow is the way, that many try to do it, but few actually make it. And I said, okay. So that means a majority of people are going to be heading there. I said, we'll riot. Who's going to, I mean, seriously, what am I going to hold my cup out and say, may I have some more porridge, sir?
We'll take over.
Why? And that's why there can never be a heaven. I mean, if you get more than 100 humans into a room, you got chaos. I mean, no one's going to like it. You walk into it and you're going to go, where is this? And I'm going to say, well, this is heaven. And you're going to say, like hell it is. No, this is hell like me. Well, thank you for an evening of deep thought, you two.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's the stimulation of the mind that I think that we so often miss. And I find it to be entertaining. I really do. I walk down the street many times and people pass me. I just have a smile on my face because I look at these things and I'm going, we've missed a few things along the way. And I think some of us are catching up to it. And the spiritual intelligence, again, I hope that's something that y'all think about and, let me know what you think.
Oh, I'll definitely be diving into this one.
Okay. See, Brian, I saw you on that. I thought that you would be ideal on that.
Yeah, awesome.
I think that as what happens to me is as we learn to disassociate from the right and the wrong, from making people wrong, and we become more present. That's what you're talking about, Wayne. You're walking down the street, and so people are so caught up into themselves and the right and the wrong aspect of things, where you're just able to be present and just see. You're just able to see, and no judgment of right or wrong, just see.
I tell you, I took a lot of LSD in my time, but this is the best trip ever. I mean, I got to tell y'all, I'm in this state of mind now where I'm aware of my presence. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes, and it's a
absolutely.
beautiful thing too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm looking at things, and here's the strange thing. I used to be into politics big time. I was actually a lobbyist. Now it repulses me because it immediately invokes this contentious feeling. It causes that chaos, that opposition. You take that side, I take this side, and I want nothing of it. I don't know what happens when we get on the other side, but all I'm going to say is that I think I figured out some things, is that it's not politics, it's not religion, it's not personality, it's about the experience.
Yes.
It really does matter what you do while you're here.
It does. And I'm just, I look at it like this. I have a lot of favor because I have friends like you two, and it makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, that's sweet, Wayne. Thank you.
Hey, it's a far out trip.
You're right. It is about the journey. We're here. I believe this is the purpose. The purpose is the journey, where the purpose is here to learn. The purpose is to learn how to get exactly where you're getting, which is presence and learning and understanding. That's our whole purpose here.
Boy, if we could just teach this. Yeah.
You are.
What?
You are.
All right. So I told y'all this was going to be a fun hour.
It was.
Always is.
And I also want to thank you, because I do love the way that you take the you have to make me, I have to think scientifically, and I have to think. I don't always like to do that, but you make me do it, and it makes my experience deeper. So I love the way that you bring the science in.
Well, good, because I learned a lot from you. It's like saw your card reading. By the way, those are some pretty far out cards. I love the graphics on them. We'll have to have you on and, show
Brian and I have started a new channel.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, we have a little channel that we're doing. Putting out like a daily reading and some other.
Well, what's the channel?
It's called shustahbysuzenn. It's got a weird spelling. I can put it in the chat. Maybe we can link it in the.
I will put it in there, and I will link it.
Okay.
And what does the channel do, please?
Well, we're doing daily. We do a daily card reading.
Excellent.
And then there's just different aspects, different things, like doing an angel reading and just whatever we feel like hits what energetically what we need to talk about. That's the intent. It's new, just getting started. So.
Excellent. Well, folks, I'll tell you what, let's lay this out here. Let's try to get them. How many subscribers do you have now?
We only got like 40, maybe.
44.
44.
Yeah.
Folks, let's try to bring them up to 1,000 here. So
okay.
Let's try to get their channel, and let's just really boost this up. Come on. I know that 1,000 people can go over there. I have nearly 27,000 subscribers. So get yourself over there and subscribe to that.
Thank you, Wayne.
I think that is fabulous.
If they just watch the daily vibe, they'll be happy. That daily vibe is always on point.
Well, and it's awesome because this show really, where Brian and I work from is all about what we've been talking about, which is the inner journey and the awareness and the not judging the self, and just exactly what we've been talking about. Right?
Yeah. It's a fascinating journey. Mal, I'll tell you what, way to go, you two. So happy about you two anyway. Y'all just you just really put a smile on my face. And Brian, your channel over there at Milky Way Weekly, I know you put out a number of videos every day.
Yeah, I put out at least 2 a day, and I've got Brian Lunsford coming up tomorrow night, and then Sue and I are going to be doing a presentation on the pineal gland and the cosmic radiation on Sunday, so you'll want to check that out.
What time?
At what, 9 o'clock?
Eastern?
Like Eastern.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Sunday night?
Yep.
Folks, you heard it. I want to see that. Because, and maybe you can add this into your discussion. So one of the things that they came out in the 50s is that when they put in the National Fluoridization Act, that the fluoride actually calcifies the pineal gland.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. A lot of things calcify the pineal gland, and the pineal gland is our connection. It's our connection to the ether.
Is there a way that that can be rehabilitated?
Yes.
Oh, there's numerous ways, yeah.
And we will talk about that.
Yep.
Woo,
You know, there's a lot of material out there on it, but I tried to pull a little scientific into the.
Good.
Good. The pineal gland is what processes photons.
What was that?
The pineal gland is what processes the photons, the light language.
Wow.
It has rods and cones, visual perceptors in it.
You know, I've been taking supplements for my pineal gland, and I got to tell you what, interesting things happen. That's all I can say.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, and now you see, that just led to another thought. Put this into your thought as well, is that how does one, if one has been in a calcified position and we begin to learn how to reverse that, I think that that would become a very foreign experience for the individual. I think like you would almost have to be coached as to what that experience would entail. Am I right or wrong on that? The pineal gland, once it begins to open and flow.
I think, yeah, I do think there's a measure necessarily coaching, and that's why you're here, Wayne. That's what you're doing. Right. You're doing it already.
I didn't even know that, but
yeah, the coaching and it's just being able, because once the pineal starts decalcifying, your awareness expands, just like taking LSD, I guess. You know, you're able to expand your awareness and grasp greater reality than that what you see in front of you. When it's calcified, all you can do is have other people think for you. And so as these people are starting to step out and be able to think for themselves, this is what you're doing. So you're in that thinking space, blending the thinking and the
thank you.
It all opens up together.
Well, my detractors think I have my cranium so far up my rectum that the fecal matter now overtakes the gray matter, but I can assure you that's not the case.
Hey, let me say, once it's open too, also, you'll truly have presence.
Yes. Good point, Brian. And I think to what you were talking about earlier, Brian, which we'll talk about Sunday a little bit, with the, there's may come a point when there's a big blast to the pineal gland, and everybody's going to get it, and it could be a little more painful than the easeful process. To me, we're in a pretty easeful process at this point in time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It could get really crazy.
It could be that proverbial ants crawling all over your body kind of feeling. like the rat says, forget the cheese, just get me the hell out of the trap.
Right? Yes.
It's good. So Sunday night, y'all go over there, get subscribed to Brian. And Brian, I know you do graphics work, so check him out, folks. If you're needing that, he is the man to talk to. And Sue, do you do readings?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a website and all.
And what is that?
I'll have to email it to you. It's
please.
It's SUZENN Susan G. But there's a whole bunch of Wix sites.
Okay. All right, you send that, and I'll put it into the information box.
Okay.
And I didn't know that. Or
you can go to shustahbysuzenn@gmail.com.
That too. Thank you.
There you go. Please send me that, and I'll put that in there. And I'll be tuning in on Sunday night.
Cool.
I think that is one. Folks, check into that. That is really something.
We're going to do a little meditation, a little pineal opening meditation type thing. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this. This is good stuff. Listen, anytime I can find mind coitus, I mean, I'm there, baby.
Awesome.
And I hope that tonight was what you found stimulating tonight. Mother Nature, yeah, I agree with you. I can see that going off in there. Well, Miss Suji, thank you. Mr. Brian, I appreciate it with you as well, my friend. Y'all are just the two best. I appreciate you so much. And everyone, thank you for joining us. Claudette, thank you for all the moderators, Mary. So I'll see y'all during the weekend, and we'll stay on here as we go out, and we'll see everyone. Definitely Monday night. Check me out. And then on Sunday, where I'm over there with Jeff Doherty over on his channel. All right, folks, be good to yourself. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.